Hey everybody, this is Freddy with Freddy Can Fly. We are now going to start part 2 of our flight instruction video series. In this demonstration, it's going to be for a beginner to mid-level range skill. What we're going to cover now is, in our first video, we went over basic hovers and control. So once you're comfortable with all your different orientations and hovering and a little bit of momentum control, we're going to start learning how to do tail-based turns and momentum-based turns. And I consider them and classify them as two different things, and two different maneuvers, if you will. So basically, the best one to start out with is going to be your tail-based turns. And once again, referring back to collective free flying, as I demonstrated in the first video in this series, we went over how to control the heli without using your collective pitch. So for your tail-based turns, they vary in different ways. I always recommend you start off really slow and easy. So we've got into our collective free hover. So basically what a tail-based turn is going to be is turning the heli around and using the rudder to reposition it, and then using the momentum in which you last left off with, that's going to be used to propel you in your new direction. And that sounds a little confusing upon explanation, so we'll use a demonstration to kind of help you guys out a little better. So right now we're collective free. I've got a little bit of forward momentum, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull back first, then whip my rudder around and let the pitch take place. Had to give a little bit there, sorry. So once we pull back on that elevator to kind of stop us, and we rotate that tail, momentum's going to kick in and it's going to shift us backwards, and then we're going to continue controlling the cyclic. And these are just tail-based turns, so you can do really slow ones like this and just kind of ride it out. Constantly adjust that cyclic, you guys, millimeter adjustments, really small ones. And you'll see we got a nice good turnaround. Now, it's really hard to stay collective free while doing these. You got to make some sort of adjustments, but they're still very small. If you study my left stick, you'll notice, besides the adjustments being made to rudder, there are some minute pitch adjustments. So, once again, we've got some forward momentum. We're going to pull back. We're going to rotate our tail, give a little bit of collective pitch, and now we're sent off in a new direction. We can do them really quick. We can whip that tail around and kind of let the momentum die out, and now we can keep going. Or one of my favorite ways to kind of do it is nice and slow. Just give really, really slow, dramatic rudder, and just keep working that cyclic, you guys. And in these, you really don't need any pitch at all, as long as you can just give them nice small adjustments, work the tail. And this is really all done with elevator, rudder, and a small amount of aileron. Don't get too heavy on that aileron, otherwise you'll enter into a momentum based turn and things get a little bit crazier because you do require more pitch for those. So once again, just rudder, pulling back on my elevator just a little bit to kind of keep me from going too fast forward. We don't want to build too much momentum. Now obviously, to stop it, we're going to come around with that rudder and we're going to pull back on the elevator. That was actually kind of like a sideways stop, but you kind of get the idea. So with tail-based turns, we can keep them nice and tight like this. Just kind of play around with your speeds. We can go into a nice low and slow easy figure 8, making really, really small adjustments, nothing too heavy. And this is actually surprisingly really hard to do, guys. To be able to fly like this, it's a challenge. It can be really hard and frustrating to learn, so just take your time, but really concentrate on whipping that rudder around. And this refers back to video 1. Get really comfortable with how fast your rudder spins at full, how fast it spins at slow rudder. From there, we can take it a step further. Now let's go ahead and let's learn some backwards tails. So we got some backwards momentum. Same thing, we're going to nose forward, whip that tail around, and now we're going to be shifted in a new direction. And this is really good practice to prepare you for the turns to come, because learning that momentum, it can be a hard thing to master as well. So these tail-based turns are really limited on momentum and basically rely on cyclic and rudder. So you can play around with those a little bit. Now the next step up from here that I would recommend going to is what's known as stall turns. Okay, And what a stall turn refers to is you're going to want to get used to getting the heli up a little bit, get some altitude. Okay, and for that, once again, you can refer back to video 1. Get used to just bringing it up, you know, letting it, you can either let it just slowly float down and bringing it back and using that momentum on your collective. Now that's going to be done with your collective, guys. Do take into consideration. When we go up, we have to come down. Now that we're coming down, we have to go up to stop us. So practice that as well. So what a stall turn is going to be is we're going to take the heli out, and we're going to want to give some collective to bring us up, and then we want to use elevator to stall the heli, rotate that tail, and then pull back out with elevator. And now if you are familiar with skateboarding, if you will, you almost make the shape of a half pipe. We're going to pull up, we're going to stall, we're going to rotate, and we're going to pull out. Now the collective pitch plays pretty heavy on this, because if we go up and we stall with positive, right here we hit 0. Now when we come out and if we just pull out, you'll notice how we kind of lost momentum and we stopped. This can actually be a pretty cool effect for certain flying maneuvers, but if we want that momentum to continue, we need to apply some positive collective along with our cyclic control. So we're going to ease into the positive and the elevator at the same time, and you'll notice it kind of shot me forward right there at the very bottom. So here we go, we're going to go up for another one, we're going to stall, we're going to rotate, and we're going to apply both at the same time, collective and cyclic, and it kind of shot me out at the bottom. Once you get good at these, I mean, God, there's a never-ending limit. We can take it all the way up here, we can stall it, we can throw a big, long, dramatic pirouette flip in, we can come back this way, and just kind of ride it out a little bit. You know, same thing, we're going to go collective and cyclic up, we're going to stall, release all control, and then we're going to apply both again at the same time. Now, a good key thing to look for when doing these so it don't result in a crash is you still want to use more cyclic than collective. So if we do an incorrect stall turn and say we give too much pitch but not enough cyclic, we're going to get something like this, and you'll notice we took off really fast there and almost ended up costing us our really nice T-Rex 700. So still really minimal adjustments on the collective and a little more heavy on the cyclic. Now if we go too heavy on the cyclic and not enough on the collective, we're going to come out of our stall and we have nothing to keep us going. You know, I had to save the heli with a sudden pitch movement. So you got to learn to work the two in sync with each other to get the desired effect. So if we want a short stall, we stall it. We can come out really hard if we want. See how I kind of give it a quick nudge, and it'll give you a little bit more of a forward torque. You know, we can come out really fast. At the same time, if we want to keep these bad boys cruising, we're going to stall it, give a little bit of negative, and then propel into it with some positive. And now you notice we got some really fast forward flight happening. So you can mix and match these all day long. You know, for the mid-level to advanced pilots, if you want to get really technical, we can start throwing in some sideways stall turns, and the same thing's going to apply. It can be a little hard to do, these ones, but same thing, we're going to keep it going sideways, we're going to bank it up, we're going to stall it, and then we're going to just come out of it, you know. So those are even hard for me to do. They're pretty hard to control. So those are going to be your stall turns, okay? Practice those up, get really frequent with those. I'd say dabble in the tail-based turns a little more frequent than your stall turns until you get comfortable. And from there, we've got one more turn to look at, and they're going to be what I consider momentum-based turns, or hurricanes, if you will. Now for these, they rely really heavy on pitch and really heavy on cyclic. And the key to these is you want to get the heli on a tilted axis using the aileron and pull back with the elevator while applying a pretty high dose of pitch. And then you'll notice how the heli stays almost completely sideways throughout this whole turn. What I'm doing is I'm constantly working a really slow-paced rudder turn into it while adjusting my pitch accordingly to keep me at one altitude. And then you also want to continuously pull back on the elevator to keep us laying flat like that. If at any time, oops, see right there, you'll notice the heli kind of got angled down, the tail got ahead of me, and I went straight into the ground. So these ones are by far the hardest of all turns to learn. and they do take quite a bit of skill and you know, study of the heli to learn. But you can do, once again, with momentum based turns, you can whip it around quick like this, you know, get them really fast whip arounds, and get that cool effect going on. Or, you know, for those of you sport flyers, you can take it out and you can just, you know, you can turn it all day long, nice and long, let it just ride out. These ones take very little movement, less pitch, less cyclic, and less rudder to make them travel further, whereas your nice tight fast turns are going to be really heavy quick movement. So if we want to whip it around quick, we're going to whip it around really quick and then bring it back. The key to controlling the momentum as far as stopping and speed goes is, once you're done with the turn, you want to level out immediately. So you'll notice right now we'll do a left hand quick turn. You'll notice as I come around, I level the heli out. I kind of lost my momentum there, got a little bit too quick on it. But you know, you're going to want to whip the heli around and then level it out. And you'll keep traveling in whatever path your momentum is telling you to go. So we're going to whip it around and we're going to level out. And another factor that plays into these, which is why they're so dang tricky, is the more you tilt the helicopter. So if we do a really sharp tilt first and pull back, you'll notice now we're locked into like a death spiral. You know, a really sharp tilt is going to require a lot of tension, whereas a really small tilt we can work with and manage in a wider circle. Also, the pullback on the elevator must match the tilt of the aileron. So for example, if I do a soft aileron tilt but a hard pullback on the elevator, we don't really get the turn. We just literally throw all the momentum out the window. Now same thing can be said if we do a harsh tilt and little pullback, you'll notice we just suddenly drop. So you really got to learn to mix and match the two. I would save your momentum based turns for a little bit later on in your flying career, until you can really learn to be a little bit more comfortable with the tail based turns and controlling the momentum of the stall turns a little bit. And once you get those down, you should be okay to start learning momentum turns on a small scale. The key to this, guys, is just take it low and slow. There's no reason to try to be better than anyone or excel too quickly, because it'll end up breaking the bank. You don't want to throw your helis into the ground too often. It's a sad day whenever you crash a heli. So practice on those turns, you guys. This is going to be part 2 in the video series of your 3 different turns: tail-based turns, stall turns, and your momentum-based turns. Once you have those down, don't forget to always still come back and practice those hovers, because you can never be too good at a hover, you guys. Even some of the best pilots, you know, have sketchy hovers sometimes, and it's just because they get so overwhelmed with you know, their competition flying, and they never really study their basic hovers too much anymore. So make sure you do a little bit of each. Maybe dedicate a couple flights to hovers, a couple flights to turns, and you know, just slowly work that in. So I hope this video was helpful. We'll shoot an auto real quick, and then we will see you guys on video 3.